Hello, and welcome to the Deepbluerenegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deepbluerenegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 26. Today is Wednesday, January 22nd. Dates. I know on the last podcast I said I was going to record yesterday, and then in the threads I said I was going to record tomorrow, but today seemed to work out pretty well. In case you guys weren't aware, there was a shooting on the 21st of January at Purdue University in the building I work in and the floor I work in, which is incredibly sad. I was actually in Texas, so I was not there. So my heart goes out to the victim's family and to the greater Purdue community. You never expect you never expect that acts of violence are going to happen to you or the places you work or the places you go to school. So because random things are random, and because of that. I don't know, it's just been a lot to think about, that I figured it was worth letting you guys know. So because of that, school was canceled yesterday and today, so that meant I was home today. So sorry about the downer start, but I figured it was worth letting you guys know. So such is life. I got a really late start this morning. I ended up waking up with my husband and we talked a little bit. And then after he left, I went back to bed and woke up at 1. It's been a really lazy day. So it's now about 4 o'clock. So I figured it'd be good to record the podcast now. This is the last of my hazelnut coffee. I might be able to scrape together one more cup. There was something weird that had happened with my coffee maker where the beans had backed up into the reservoir. It appears that it's working fine now, but it sometimes confuses me how that thing fails. I just did a couple of rinse cycles and it seems like the water's clear now. But it was definitely very steeped earlier. And this is the string of shame. I didn't end up weaving in the ends on these at all, but I figured I could show you my shame. I don't know, can you see all those ends? They came in really handy last night, so when I landed in Dallas, it was 69 degrees. When I landed in Indianapolis, it was 8 degrees. I'm really glad my car started. Otherwise, it was going to be a very awkward phone call. I'm not gonna lie. And be like, honey, my car won't start. So it turns out that my car's been having a hard time because the battery's old and I just need to replace the battery. Oh well, such is life. I do have a finished object for you guys this week. So I knit a pretty thing out of the Zeolana Air. So let's see, this is the cast on edge and this is the sew and bind off edge. So I had to make many different modifications in order to make this work because the pretty thing is intended for precious yarn, and I had concluded that this was precious yarn. It's quite large. So it's something where you can wear it sort of hat-like and stuff like that. So I ended up having to make several different modifications to the pattern in order to make it work. Obviously, it's quite long. You could probably get away with doing fewer repeats in the middle section to make it more neck length. And you could probably even take out an additional pattern repeat of the chart or whatever. So you have in the pattern as written by the yarn harlot, aka Stephanie Pearl McPhee, she asked for 7 repeats around and size 4 needles. So I was trying to figure out what the appropriate thing for it. The Zeolana Air is, it looks to me more like an Aran weight than a chunky weight. So I decided, so they call for 9 on the ball band, and I decided to go with 10.5, US 10.5 needles, which ended up giving it a nice sort of lacy look that it was, supposed to have. But yeah, no, I could probably get away with the same length but 4 repeats. But what ended up being the impetus for casting this on was that I went to see how much it would cost to buy another ball, and I only found it in one online yarn shop, which was in New York. But the cost of a ball was $54. Oh my gosh. And it took a little bit to actually find the chunky variety, so it turns out they also have a lace variety, which is $25 for 25 grams. It's fun, like it's cashmere. Like there's a lot of cashmere in this. This is 40% cashmere, 40% possum, and 20% mulberry silk. So it is, like in the ball, it felt lovely, but knitting it up, it was just like, and because it was a charted pattern, it was just sort of, like potato chip knitting where you can't just do one row, you have to, it's the just one more row effect. So because of that, what was it? So instead of doing 7 repeats, I did 5, and this turns out to be a pretty big cowl, which is fine. So it just sort of drapes around your neck artfully, which is fine. And probably this, since it's a cable ply yarn, it shows stitch definition a lot better than usual. I haven't given it a bath. I don't know if I will. It should bloom quite a bit just because of the cashmere content. That's just what happens. And let's see. So I ended up taking out 6 rows in the chart in the middle region, if you've ever knit a pretty thing before or were thinking about it. And I looked through a lot of the project notes to try to figure out if someone had ever successfully scaled it. And it didn't appear that anyone had. It would be the case where I think someone knit it with worsted weight, but then used size 6 needles, which means that you weren't getting the lacy effect, because I normally knit worsted on 6s, and maybe most people tend to do 7s or 8s, but whatever. So it would be the case where you had to choose a needle size that was a good deal greater than the diameter of your yarn in order to get that lacy scallopiness of it all. And it was a superbly written pattern. I only used the directions for the sewn bind off that were given, and talk about wicked stretchy. The bind off is stretchier than the knit, or it's probably stretchier than the knitting is itself. And it doesn't match the cast on edge. But so that's sort of what sort of gave this directionality, because it definitely wants to stretch more in one way than the other. And I just think it's an attractive little pattern. So it was pretty cool. And it was a good fun to knit it. It turned out that it was important that I took out those 6 rows because I would have run out of yarn otherwise. I only had enough yarn for, well, when I was knitting the middle section, I noticed that it took 1.6 grams per 2 rows, and I only had 4.8 grams left over, which I don't think that divides evenly. It might have. I maybe could have knit it as is, but it would have been even more ridiculously long, so I don't know, and it's something where it just turned out really gorgeous. I don't know if I'm going to give it away or keep it. As I was knitting it, I had someone in mind, so I might be sending it to her because I think I'll have to double check the color of her coat. But this is just, the other thing is that she's been to New Zealand many times, so giving her something that came from New Zealand I thought would be really cool. So that this was really exciting and lovely. And yeah, it's cool. So, the pretty thing by the Yarn Harlot in the Zialana Air Chunky. So, and it's so soft and squealy. It really is amazing, and it was definitely the most luxurious fiber or the most luxurious yarn I've ever knit with. But I can't justify spending $54 for another skein. Oh my gosh, that's so expensive. But I suppose that if you use the nice stuff, they do charge for the nice stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how pill resistant it is. Supposedly the construction and the possum are supposed to make it resistant to pilling, which is a problem with cashmere. So we shall see. But yeah. So not too bad. Pretty cool, huh? And that is it for finished objects. Maybe one day I'll finish these gloves. I probably just need to see, even trapping me in a tin can at 35,000 feet didn't convince me to finish weaving in the ends on these. I'm certainly glad I brought them with me. So let's see. I am knitting away on Hawalea. This is the left front. Woohoo! Left front. I am to the make it match the length of the right front stage. I don't have any interesting increases or decreases left to do. And from there I can do the seaming, which will be whatever this week in the knit along. So I should quick power through this so that at least I'm caught up on that part of the knit along. So it's coming along. I think I have maybe 3 more inches to go, but it should go really fast because it isn't like there are a lot of stitches here. Yeah, there aren't a lot of stitches here, so it shouldn't be a big deal. It's just I decided not to take all of the pieces of Hawalea with me on the plane because I knew that I wasn't really going to have all that much knitting time. So, and that ended up working out just fine. The project I did take with me, however, is the Walk on the Moon. I don't think I showed this to you guys last week. And apparently I'm in the middle of a row right now. Obviously, I prepared really a lot for this. If I had been prepared for the podcast, I probably would have sat down and finished weaving in the ends. How much more do I have left of this stupid row? So I have been knitting Walk on the Moon. That is by Arlene's World of Lace. I don't think I'd cast this on last week, so this is a brand new work in progress for you guys. Woohoo! Party time! So I did give mine away to my mother-in-law, and she adores it, which is awesome. But I knew that I wanted to do it again, and as going along with the theme of potato chip knitting, the Walk on the Moon pattern is really addictive because every so often you're doing something new, since there are a variety of different textured slip stitch patterns that go along with it. So because of that, it's not a hard pattern. It's in fact pretty easy, but there is quite a bit of chart. But once you master the first section of the chart, the subsequent sections are in fact very similar. So it's not all that big a deal to do it. It turned out that I didn't have any Xiaogu red lace fixed needles, but I did have my Knit Picks circular needles, And at some point this is going to be too small for the shawl, so I'll probably have to switch projects. Excuse me, because I'm using size 3 needles on the Himalaya and for this. And it did, when I ended up blocking my mother-in-law's shawl, it was the case where it came out very, I don't know, there's just something really magical about blocking the bejesus out of Woolmisa. And the fabric that you get when you pin it hard is very, very lovely. So I am knitting this out of 3 colorways. I decided to switch it up a little bit and do Pistazi as the first colorway, which is a pistachio green. Then I'm doing, for my second color, I'm doing ORH negative, which is a pretty semi red colorway that looks like blood. And the last color that I'm going to do is the Chim Chim Chimney. I was a little bit worried when I was weighing balls if I would have enough chim to do the last section. And I was looking around in the yarn room, and then I saw my swatches from Simplicity, and I threw those on the pile. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is enough yarn. Because each section of, so what was it? I think it takes 20 grams of the first color, it takes about 80 grams of the second, and it takes 60 of the third. So with that extra 11 grams I had, what was it? With that extra 11 grams I was up to 65 grams of the chim, which made me, it was probably 65 grams of chim. I did have 54 because I did the chim as the middle section in my mother-in-law's version. So it's been potato chip knitting for sure. I'm addicted. You would think that knitting it so soon after I knit it before it would be pretty boring, but it is not. It is in fact quite fascinating, or it's still fascinating. I would say the color combination that I have right now has quite a bit of punch to it, or a great deal more punch than the first color combination that I did. And this is just because when you're thinking about when you're combining colors together, you have, to a certain extent, you're looking at the how saturated the colors are, and then how the shades of the colors work together, and so you can create contrast depending on whether you're looking in terms of shade or saturation. And that sometimes it helps to have difference in shade and saturation in order to get something to really look good together. And with this one, they all have pretty much the same saturation. With Woolmisa, generally the saturation is about as high as humanly possible. So in this case, since I have this green, red, blue combination, this first section of color change is pretty punchy. Because red and green are across from each other in the color wheel, which means that they have very strong contrast between them. And I'd say when I add in the blue, it will not look so Christmassy, because that's why, I don't know, that is the danger of putting red and green together, is that it tends to look fairly Christmassy. And that when I incorporate the red and blue together in this, it will not be nearly as punchy, but I don't think that's necessarily what I'm going for here. So what is it? So I'm almost done with this row. I'm really sorry about that. I'm sure I could talk at length, or that's why I started the podcast, because I can talk about knitting a great deal more than most of my friends care to listen. My husband knows a great deal about knitting, but occasionally I'll start talking about knitting and he'll start talking about fish, and then I'll be like, okay, fine. So I've been really enjoying the strong contrast that this particular combination has together. And it's been interesting just because having the shorter rows means that you can really see the variation in the second color. And the second color is the one that you see a lot of in the shawl itself, because there are pretty long sections of it where you're just doing the knit and or knit one way and purl back sorts of things. So there are great big stockinette sections, which I'm going to be getting to soon, because I'm almost done using the green. And what is it? So it's been a lot of fun. I ended up knitting on this and the plane ride 2 dowels and probably half of the plane ride back. I spent the plane ride trying to write down all my thoughts and impressions and stuff like that. And once I'd run out of deep thoughts, then I'm like, oh, okay, shawl. I don't even know about deep thoughts so much as it had been a very busy and ridiculous day. So this is what I have so far. So we will align it so that you get a decent amount of the light and bring it closer. So pretty gorgeous, huh? And it is really punchy. I don't know, does it look a lot like Christmas colors to you? So so right now I'm in this section here where I have these basically alternating little pops of color, and because they contrast strongly with each other, I think it makes for a really cool effect. And in the slip stitch section, maybe you guys can see somewhat how there's the different shades of red. Like there's a darker red and then there's a brighter red in this. I'm not quite sure how to make that work out. All right, to show you guys. So that's what I have so far. I have a couple more repeats of this particular slip stitch pattern, and then I will have a couple long sections of the red, which I think will be very gorgeous, hopefully. I'm excited. It's been exciting to knit this. So that's been pretty happy. And yeah, so it's coming together. Obviously you can tell it's a little bit crowded on the needle right now. I might continue for a bit longer before I switch out. We'll just see. And I suppose I can show you the color combo. Let me detach my knitting bag. So what I have here is the red, the green, and the blue. So I thought that these guys together really had a lovely punch, and you can really see in the skein, I believe, how much variegation is in the red. So it's really neat. I'm excited, and it's the colors of light, which I think is pretty cool. And then it turned out that this was the 11 grams of yarn I needed in order to feel like it was safe to proceed. So really not very much, but it will probably be worth a couple rows of ruffle. So, and the blue will be the ruffle color, so yay, awesome. So those are my works in progress. I don't really have plans right now for casting on anything new. I might end up swatching this weekend for Walk on the Moon, or it might turn out that I'm refinishing the floor in the main room of the house. Sometimes it's hard to predict these things. We still have to figure out a good way of, what is it? Because this main room connects the, separates the bedrooms from the kitchen area, it may be the case where we are having a challenging time getting around our house as we're waiting for the varnish to dry or whatever it needs to do in order to work. So that might be a project for tonight when the Dear Sweet Lovable One gets home. Okie doke. I did end up getting some spinning. I spun the first bit of fiber for the Fat Cat knits, and this is what I have so far. So I'm trying to hold it very still. Hold it closer to the camera, maybe. So it's quite gorgeous. And yeah, no, so I'm spinning it. I'm trying to spin it the same as what I spun before, and hopefully it was the case where I spun it as thick as it wanted to be, because actually I'm gonna have to take off the fail to weave in the ends close. So there's still a decent chunk of the ball left to go. I suppose I could weigh things if I knew where my scale was. Scale might be upstairs. So, but look at how bright and punchy the colors coming up are going to be. So I will be starting off over here and continuing on the spinning of this. Hopefully it doesn't take me as long as the first half did, because that just seemed to linger on for a long time. So this is my first spin the bin yarn for the year, and part of the reason why I ended up getting started on it was, or why I could sort of feel guilt-free in terms of continuing to spin it, is that I did finish cleaning the fleece. Yay! I finished washing it all Sunday night, so I haven't been up yet to check to make sure that it's all dry, and it appears that yes, in fact, I will have to go through again and remove the hay. As I was going through, I was splitting the larger chunks of fleece into more lock-sized amounts, because a lock is about right for a row log, or maybe 1 or 2 locks are about right for a row log. So, because of that, I'm going to have to go through and get the hay out, because the one thing about cards is that when you card fiber, some of the hay might come out as you card, but it's incidental. Only with combs can you remove vegetable matter effectively. So, or only with combs is it possible to not be careful about removing the vegetable matter and knowing that it's not going to get into your fiber, or you can get it out of your fiber without great pain and whatnot. So it's probably the case where if it's dry, I'm going to sit down and catch up on podcasts. I watched Emily of What Just Watchin'. I know, Emily's so happy. She's adorable. I love her. So I assume that she got the snow day that she was hoping for today. So she is having a sweater spin along in her group right now, and she's also doing the Fingering Weight February, which is to knit a adult fingering weight sweater in between February and mid-March, I believe. And well, I'm going to be participating with the Bohas because I'm insane. Sorry. And I have been posting, or I posted a picture of my first skein in the thread. So if you're also in Completely Twisted and Arbitrary, okay, that was worthless. Man, I hate spam callers. No one should be able to even call my cell phone like that. Oh well. So what I was saying was, in the Completely Twisted and Arbitrary group, there is a sweater spinner support thread. I haven't posted in there yet, but I should, because they're really, if you're a spinner, I would say that CTA, Completely Twisted and Arbitrary, is an incredibly supportive group of people, and they have very inspiring and exciting spinning going on there. So it's been, I wouldn't necessarily say that I spin more because I joined the group, but the Fat Cat Knits is whatever their spin along from July to October or July to September or something like that. I probably wouldn't have been looking so seriously at the fleece or at fleeces when I went to the Taos Wool Festival. And I have bought some de-stash fiber from a member as well. So it's just the case where they're evil enablers. If you don't want to be enabled, stay away. But they work on such really neat projects, and their challenges tend to be very accessible and fun, like the spin the bin and stuff like that. So it's just a really great place. I highly recommend it. Let's see, any other things I want to talk about? I didn't do any weaving at all this week. The loom was moved upstairs in preparation for refinishing the entire floor. So such is life. I will finish it. It really doesn't take all that much time, but it needs to be downstairs for me to work on it, because it is too cold upstairs right now for me to hang out in the yarn room. But I've been trying to make the yarn room a more comfortable place to hang out, but the prospect of hanging out under many blankets is unappealing to me. Oh, silliness. And obviously, since my hair is down, I keep playing with it. That's why I normally keep it up, because otherwise I'd just be fiddling with it. So, I hope you didn't get it, or I hope you guys didn't mind that I had to finish knitting half a row Walk on the Moon. I think I have talked quite thoroughly about it now. I don't think that I have anything more to talk about. Oh, Jordan, I'm sorry, there was no time at all to visit the yarn store in Plano, but maybe some other time. Who knows? It was probably the case where I needed to take an earlier flight to Dallas, and then I would have had more time to meet up with people and hang out, but such is life. I should be recording next Tuesday. What is next Tuesday? Probably the 29th. Nope, it would be the 28th. Alright, next Tuesday is the 28th of January, which is cool. And I look forward to speaking with you guys then. So I hope you all have a lovely week and happy knitting. So take care. Bye-bye.